Welcome to LC Screen Talk. My name is Larry, and today I am ranking all of the animated films I saw in 2018. I love the medium of animation, and this year we got plenty of really good animation on the big screen. In total, I have 16 animated films to rank from the year 2018. Now, this is a bit of a down curve from last year, but I do think there were just less animated films released here overall in 2018. So before we get into the list, of course, this is just my personal ranking. These are my opinions. This is how much I enjoyed these films. By no means is this a science or is this a ranking based on pure quality. And I look forward to seeing how everybody else ranks the animation they saw in 2018. And in saying that, obviously I can only rank the films I saw. So if there are other great animated films that maybe I missed this year, leave that in the comment section down below, and hopefully I'll get a chance to check it out. So without further ado, we have quite a few movies to get through. So let's kick things off. In dead last, 16th place, we have Duck, Duck, Goose. This film was difficult to sit through. I can clearly see why it was dumped off to Netflix, because if I had actually seen this in a movie theater, whether that be waste my time sitting in line for a screening or actually paying, oh, yeah, I would have been really upset. Because as is, I wanted to turn this off as I was watching it at home on Netflix. This movie is so grating and irritating that it's difficult to actually watch all the way through. Now, some of the voice work is fine. I don't think any of it's exceptional, but some of it is fine. And the animation overall looked good, minus that cat in particular. But the rest of the animation looked fine. I thought the character designs were cute as they needed to be, but that's it. Everything else about this movie is terrible. The jokes are so adolescent and god awful, like farting in faces. They're just terrible. The story is a cliched mess. All of our characters are highly unlikable, whether they are just annoying or straight up bad people, in this case, birds, or turtles, or animals in general. And it's just a grating experience. It's not just a bad animated film, it's literally annoying throughout the entirety of the film. It is difficult to watch and sit through and not want to just lay down and give up on life. Not only is this the worst animated film of the year by a mile, this is one you're pretty sure to see on my upcoming worst films of 2018 list. I really didn't like it. At number 15, I have Sherlock Gnomes. This held that bottom spot down for quite some time, but good on Netflix came in clutch to save Sherlock Gnomes. There are some decent enough aspects to this film. The hand-drawn animation was a fun and inventive way to show inside the mind of our main character. The likes of James McAvoy and Emily Blunt, they try at least somewhat with their vocal work, and the animation is okay. But this villain was such a mess and so horrible. So annoying the entire film that right off the bat I was put off. The character of Sherlock Gnomes was also pretty annoying. And then much like Duck Duck Goose, we relied pretty heavily on really ridiculous, stupid adolescent jokes about frogs, kissing, gnome people, about butts, about mankini. All of the nonsense is in there. There are no laughs to be had. There's no fun to be had. It just isn't a very good animated film. At number 14, I have Next Gen. So this is the second Netflix animation that I have on the ranking, and unfortunately, it also falls pretty low on the list. I thought the concept of the talking dog was okay. In execution, not so great. I thought the animation was all very nice, actually. And I did really like our robot in the film. I thought he was a very sweet, very nice character. But you know what other film I also really liked our robot in? Big Hero 6. This is very similar to Big Hero 6 in many ways, except for about a third as good. The biggest problem, honestly, with Next Gen is that our main protagonist, although a child, is very unlikable. And that's a big problem. You understand somewhat where she's coming from. She has that like dark, troubled past, but she's like literally trying to murder her classmates. And she is really terrible to the robot that she finds in manipulative ways. And we're asked to continually side with her and sympathize with her. And at first, of course, you do because she's being bullied, and we have those aspects of finding herself. But as we go on, it's impossible to stay on her side. You are like, girl, I want this robot away from you because you are not it, sis. And that's a problem, to actively just think that your main character is terrible. Plus, as I said, it felt very derivative of Big Hero 6. Our villain was very meh. And it was just hard to get interested and hard to get invested into. At number 13, I have The Grinch. Not much like Next Gen. I don't think this was a terrible film. It is a film that had very little purpose. The big part of that is because we don't get enough of the Grinch that we came here to see. He's at the beginning, and actually there is a sequence in this film that I adored. I thought was so fun, so funny, and a great scene with the Grinch just going and being mean to all the Whoville townspeople in really mundane and fun ways. And then you had this like Christmas choir following him and like hunting him throughout the city. I loved all of that. I thought that sequence was actually fantastic. I also loved Max. I think they did a really good job of giving him character and keeping him insanely adorable. However, we added needless characters, like that reindeer, like many of the Who people, that then detracted from some of the known characters, like Cindy Lou Who, that it would have been nice to spend more time with. And then we get to Cindy Lou Who, and she's on this mission to, like, kidnap Santa Claus. Suddenly we're in The Nightmare Before Christmas. It's crazy. Like, it's like, oh, wow, this is completely antithetical to the message of what we're supposed to be doing here. Now, the core of her mission is really pure and really cute, and that's where I wish we had gone with her story. Stuck with her and her mom, and maybe even got more time with her mom in general. And then on the Grinch side, we don't get a whole lot of mean Grinch, honestly. He kind of is just there. And I don't really understand the fascination of seeing characters like the Grinch shave and brush their teeth and have breakfast. Like, what? And then in the end, we get super schmaltzy and super sweet, and I just, it was perfectly fine. It was inoffensive. It was unharmful. Next, I have Hotel Transylvania 3. I actually really enjoyed Hotel Transylvania 3. Pretty much 11 on up, I think we're solid, which is a very high ratio. The world building in Hotel Transylvania 3 was beautiful. I loved getting out on this ship. Seeing some of these sights was really fun. Seeing the monsters on the cruise setting was also very fun. I enjoyed the family aspects to the film, and it was an interesting concept to begin with. Some of our jokes, though, drag out just a bit much. Of course, the stereotypical Adam Sandler type of jokes sneak their way in. But overall, I think this was a funny, sweet, charming third to the trilogy that I had a good time with. Those jokes and the slapsticky aspects of the film keep it from moving up any further on the list, but it was definitely a fun time. At number 11, I have Mary and the Witch's Flower. So internationally, I'm pretty positive this was a 2017 release, but it's listed as a January United States release, and that's when I was able to see it. So I'm counting it on my ranking. It was not available, not accessible to me until 2018. So here it is. Now, I think this is a very sweet, very charming film that I actually enjoyed a tad bit more than I had anticipated. I wasn't sure heading into Mary and the Witch's Flower. We had a likable protagonist who was on a very fun mission with some wonderful, fantastical elements thrown in. However, I do think it heavily borrowed from some Studio Ghibli elements, as well as character designs, almost ripping characters straight out of Studio Ghibli films. And it just didn't quite connect with me on an emotional level the way that the top 10 did. So it was a very sweet film. It was adorable. Of course, it had really gorgeous animation, But that just emotional, personal connection was missing, and that's why it ranks in at number 11. At number 10, I have Pokemon the movie, The Power of Us. As I said in my review, the amount of times we hear like Pokemon power or these cheesy dialogue lines is very high. That doesn't negate the fact that I think this was a very worthwhile story that was told in a fair manner. And as a Pokemon fan, I just had a lot of fun. I think there's a lot of really solid humor in this film that stays in line in brand with the Pokemon brand itself. And it doesn't go to a lot of like potty humor ever. It's so cute. Oh, I just love seeing Pikachu on the big screen. You can pretty much have him doing anything, and I am on board. I'm in love. But the environmental message was really strong. The message of working together to save the day was really positive. I just think it was a really positive film. There were certainly beautiful aspects to the animation, but it certainly is not the best animation on this list. And actually, a few beneath this position probably had little more advanced animation styles. But the heart was there, the fun was there, and I had a great time watching it. At number 9, I have Early Man. This is quite a bit lower, actually, than I had anticipated ranking Early Man, especially after I saw it. I really enjoyed this film. So for it to be coming in at number 9 is quite the shock. Much like Mary and the Witch's Flower, it just didn't quite emotionally resonate with me as strong as certainly past Aardman films have. I always have huge respect for stop motion animation. As a craft, it is just a beautiful thing to behold on the big screen, both because it looks gorgeous most of the time if it's getting an actual theatrical release, but also just the pure dedication of how it came to life. Always completely enthralls me and captures me in a way that a lot of other animated styles don't. And I thought the story of the underdog was very cute. Of course, dealing with these cavemen and having their home taken from them and kind of being overrun by a more sophisticated man, I think was actually a very nice overall story, but a cliched story. The story we've seen before, and we've seen executed better before. And I think the big problem for me here was the character design. I just found them to be a little bit too off-putting and ugly. A lot of times studios such as Aardman do kind of straddle the line, but when you look at adorable little Shaun the Sheep, and then you look at the characters of Early Man, including the animals like that little hog, it's like, oh yeah, these characters are hard to connect to because I'm so off-put by their appearance and character design. You add that on top of a cliched story, and it was just a little bit hard to fully connect to, but still a well-executed, well-crafted film overall. At number 8, I have Smallfoot. Now, if you had told me this would be above something like Early Man at the beginning of the year, I never would have believed it. I actually thought Smallfoot looked kind of terrible from the trailers, but I actually really liked it. What really shocked me when it came to Smallfoot was the messages. I think this had such sophisticated messages that I really wasn't anticipating heading into the film, and I think it executed them all really well, honestly. We talk about religious dogma and fanaticism within religion, and in conjunction with that, we talk about blindly listening to authority and law without question. And then that brings up the moral issue of lying and a good lie versus a bad lie. What does that mean? And at the core of it all, we have this kind of mutual xenophobia message that shows the harm of xenophobia itself and segregation. But I think it all was done very fairly. I think it was done with an even hand throughout. I love that all of our characters had layers. We didn't have just outright baddie villains like you anticipate at the beginning of the film. They all kind of come full circle. They have their own journeys. They have their own things to discover and grapple with, which I thought was done very well. The characters looked very nice. The animation actually was really beautiful. I will say that the songs ranged from pretty forgettable to, oh, James Corden, why are you like up here doing karaoke to Under Pressure? And some of the facial stuff I didn't love actually, just from a design perspective. And we had that one little Yeti sidekick that was part of the group that was super annoying. But overall, I think it was actually a really well done animated film that went a lot deeper than I ever anticipated, and I thought it really was effective in sending the messages it needed to send without feeling preachy. At number 7, I have Mirai. This is definitely an awards contender. This is the anime that has its chance at getting in there and snatching up some of these nominations. Will it do it? Well, that's yet to be seen. Well, it already has with the Golden Globes. For the Oscars, well, we'll see. But what a wonderful little film this was. Basically, a Christmas Carol, but coming of age style. That's how I would kind of describe Mirai. It is so inventive and so wonderfully executed in its animated sequences. We blend so many different forms of animation into this beautiful base color palette that just looks gorgeous throughout. And I loved the overall messaging of children learning empathy and learning to empathize with others, learning to overcome jealousy, basically through empathy itself, and then the importance of family, in particular to the Japanese culture, and really the importance of family worldwide, honestly. And it was all very powerful. And much like something like Smallfoot, I think the messages it was trying to send were hit with a home run. Now, our main protagonist, he prevented me from moving this up any further on our list, and that's mainly because I'm not really a big kid person. And they did a good job of making him feel like a very bratty kid very often in this film. So there were times I was just like, ooh, somebody get this child, please. And of course, it's all meant to be that way. This is purposeful. But sometimes purposeful things don't necessarily work in your favor. And in this instance, for me personally, maybe they did too good of a job of making him a bratty kid. And it turned me off just a bit. And that's why Mirai doesn't work its way up into the top 6. But it still is a beautifully crafted film that has a really well done message system behind it. At number 6, I have Sgt Stubby, an American hero. This little animated film was such a pleasant surprise. First of all, I think the animation itself was just absolutely charming and so adorable. We've received so many films about dogs or woofs or robot dogs, but Sgt Stubby stood out in the fact that we were telling a true war story through the form of animation that was family friendly without feeling sugar-coated. First of all, we don't have Stubby talk, which is great. It's already a nuisance in live action. Yes, show dogs, I'm looking right at you. Even in animation. But when it comes to the medium of animation, it's just nice to see a dog at the center of our story who is not overly humanized, is not given all of these personified characteristics. And I think the connection between Sgt Stubby and our main hero was very adorable. Stubby himself was a very realistic hero here. These are the type of stories that really create a bond from human to dog, from human to other creatures on Earth, period. Is seeing stories like Sgt Stubby in which the animal is a legitimate hero and a celebrated hero here in the United States. And what I loved is that it doesn't shy away from the brutalities of war and what it means to go to war, the dangers of going to war, and it doesn't glamorize war and action, which again, lesser animated films, ones that don't have as much sophistication in the script department, would have gone with. So it just does so much right. It has so much heart, and that's why Sgt Stubby gets all the way up to number 6. At number 5, I have Teen Titans Go to the Movies. So I'm not gonna lie, this was one of the most fun experiences I had in a movie theater for 2018. I thought this film was so much fun. It was one of the funniest films I've seen in 2018. For me, it did meta humor right. These jokes come flying at you, fast and furious. So not all of them land, because there's a lot of them. I think it's impossible for all of them to land. But a good portion of them do, and they're really fun, really funny. They're poking fun at the DCEU, poking fun at DC in general. It had the best Stan Lee cameo, if you ask me, for 2018. It had a better Stan Lee cameo than any of our Marvel proper properties of 2018. That's undeniable. And arguably the best one, period. There's another animated film yet to come that definitely rivals it for that spot. But it was certainly the most funny. But it was certainly the funniest and most fun we've seen with Stan Lee. And to get it in a DC property, that's awesome. Now, the story we've seen before when it comes down. So when you strip away all the meta, including the kind of main mission of Robin and our Teen Titans team here, when you strip all that away, this base bone story is something we've seen many a time. It's nothing new, it's nothing innovative. But I didn't really care because I thought it was executed pretty well. Had a couple of hiccups near the end with it, but I was just having such a fun time. I think it was so funny. I think it was so entertaining that, yeah, it gets up to number 5. I really enjoyed Teen Titans Go to the Movies. At number 4, I have Isle of Dogs. Another stop-motion animated film makes the list, and this time it comes from none other than Wes Anderson returning to animation. What a return this was. I think this was a fantastic film. Just absolutely gorgeously executed. The production, let's say that, not just animation, the production design on this film is stunning. I loved the dogs, and I loved what it said about the friendship and connection between dogs and humans, and I think that was so well done. I think the dogs as characters themselves was also really well done. And our human characters mostly were fine. I will say, the little bit of white savior that was intermixed into this film with our English-speaking girl character, and really, her character in general was the most grating, certainly, of the bunch. But really everything back at, in Japan, on the mainland, was a little bit of a drag. But everything on, Trash Island, where the dogs are, was just spectacular. It was so witty, it was so funny. The script, as all Wes Anderson scripts seem to be, was spot on, expertly written. The filmmaking was pure Wes Anderson. I mean, this was Wes Anderson at his own meta heights, because this was symmetric to a T. The precision was there, the execution was there. He did not leave one aspect of the frame unlooked at, untouched, and unaltered. It was beautiful. At number 3, I have The Incredibles 2. What a movie. I think The Incredibles 2 was absolutely fantastic, and maybe just a smidge under the original Incredibles. I loved the fish out of water storyline. I loved the development that both parents in this film received. It was so nice to see Mr. Incredible really learning to be this kind of family man, learning to be a superhero in a completely new fashion, and then to see Elastigirl get her time in the sun to shine, to be the hero, was also wonderful. Having Frozone coming back for a bigger role was awesome. And the kids all had their own separate little times to shine, whether that be Violet and her storyline throughout with this boy at school, or Jack and the pretty much movie-stealing raccoon fight scene. Of course, I would have loved more Edna, but she is wonderful in the moment she's in. The villain is definitely a downgrade for me. From the first, it's predictable, the movie is a bit predictable, and it didn't emotionally hit me like the top 2 films did, but The Incredibles 2 was a fantastic animated film. Another really solid sequel from Pixar, now that they're in that business, and well worth the wait we had to endure to get it. At number 2, I have Ralph Breaks the Internet. I loved this film. This was the highlight for animated sequels in my book for 2018. So as I just alluded to while talking about The Incredibles 2, Ralph Breaks the Internet had so much heart. This is the type of animated film that really just smacks you right in the feels. Now, it doesn't hit you like Coco, let's be clear about that, but You are so invested in the friendship that is at the center of this franchise that it's impossible not to just get roped in, to get sucked into the emotions that are being presented. And what a sophisticated, well-developed friendship we have between Ralph and Vanellope in this film. The end message about friendships is one of the most sophisticated messages about friendship that I've ever seen done in a family-oriented film. And honestly, it's really sophisticated for film in general, because that's not really something we usually see Hollywood pushing. It's a completely different type of friendship message, and I think it was so well done. Plus, I absolutely loved the princesses. They pretty much stole the show for me. I loved every single sequence they were in. That is how you do self-referential humor without being degrading to your own properties, Disney. All of the internet was so well realized. Jokes landed, they came fast and furious. The heart was there. I loved Ralph Breaks the Internet. I loved how they incorporated breaking the internet into the film. It all just worked for me. I think this was such a wonderful film. Honestly, it's competing for a spot on my top 10 of the year. That's how much I love this film. But I didn't quite love it enough to give it that #1 spot on this ranking. So what beat out these other amazing animated films? Well, that is Spider-Man Into the Spiderverse. What really set this apart from all of the other animated films on this list was pure innovation. I was just astounded looking at the animation done in this film. The craftsmanship and the work put to the movie were just mind-blowing, actually. Consistently throughout the film, you were watching, feeling like you were looking at the pages of a comic book come to life, and I've never seen anything realized quite so well. And then it would transition to different animated styles and incorporate them expertly well. But honestly, this works on virtually every single level underneath that animation as well. The origin story itself is fantastic. It is so funny and so intelligent the way that they tell this story. The script is absolutely stellar. The meta humor about Peter Parker, about the Sam Raimi Spider-Man films themselves, about knowing all this foolishness was done so well. I thought all of the exposition was handled in an expert way that any other film couldn't pull off. And the action was amazing. The action was so much fun to behold, to watch. And Miles Morales was a wonderful, wonderful lead character here. Not to mention, and his connection to his classmates, to these other Spider-Men, to his family, to his uncle, it all just worked so well. Not to mention that soundtrack was fire. Do you hear me? Fire. The soundtrack was amazing, as was the original score. All of it was just stellar. This film was nearly perfectly executed, in my opinion. It was a groundbreaking film for animation. It was a groundbreaking film for the comic book genre itself, and I think it really is reinvigorating to comic book films at large. And if this is how Sony Animation plans to present a Spider-Verse, I'm down. I am here for it and can't wait to see what they're able to do next. So it's my favorite Sony Animation film that's ever been released. It's my favorite Spider-Man film that's been released to the big screen. And it's my favorite animated film of 2018. So that is my ranking of all of the animated films I saw in 2018. What did you think of how I ranked these films? And what did you think about the films that made it into my ranking? Let me know either in the comment section down below, or you can, of course, hit me up on Twitter. And while you're down there, make sure that you leave your personal ranking of the animated films you saw this year. I can't wait to check them out. If you liked this video, if you like animated content, make sure to hit that like button down below and subscribe to the channel so you are always up to date on our latest content. I love you all so much for your continued support. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye!